Hello Unreal Engine community. I'm Michael and this is my tool called Sprite Synergy. Now, this tool will be released completely for free because I benefited of other blueprints in the past and I want to return the favor. I also want to help the Unreal Engine community grow and also help other community members. So that's why I'm actually doing it for free. Excuse me. Now, just a short summary. This tool basically converts your 3D animations or your 3D models into 2D images or sprites. So it's not a direct conversion tool, however it works like a photo booth. So you will place a 3D animation in some kind of a photo frame, and when you're done with it and it's framed correctly and you press plot the sprite, it will create snapshots of this particular 3D object. So that's how it works, and this will be an overall quick tutorial how to use this tool. Now, I am really interested what you will come up with in the future when you use this tool. So if you want to show me something you did with it or make a challenge or community, whatever, I'm interested in it. Please send me a PM on the forums or to my email address darkgodslairgames@gmail.com. And yeah, I'm excited. And I'm really interested and curious. So without further ado, I will jump right in. First off, the most important bit here is called Sprite Synergy Blueprint or Sprite Synergy _BP. Now the cool thing is you don't need to do anything, just drag it inside the viewport, and when you press play you can already use it. So you don't need to go to the world settings and then to the game mode override and override something here. You just need to drag it in, drag and drop it into the level, and it will already work. This is also just a blueprint only here asset, so you don't need any other requirements. Like you've seen here, it will give an error, and that's just complaining about it didn't find something in the current animation reference variable. Just ignore it. That's just an error when you have not specified a skeletal mesh in here. So it doesn't do anything bad to the plotting process. Okay, so this tool is it's a combination, or rather combination work. One part is in the editor and one part is at runtime. So the whole plotting process will be made in the runtime component. So we can actually pan around, plot the sprite sheet, select animations and the view. And the other details will be inside the editor itself, at the side here. Now, one thing I wanted to mention too, when you use this tool, it will only input HDR or .hdr here images. So I can't put it out as PNG or JPEG or anything like that, because I can't access the image format inside the blueprints. I can only export HDR. So if you have trouble with it, then just use this tool, export it in HDR, then use a conversion tool and you will have your image too. So that's that. Okay, so first off, when we click on the Sprite Synergy blueprint, we will get a lot of different options here. So the first thing, under the Skeletal Mesh Spriting tab, we can already select a skeletal mesh we want to use. I will just select my Unomesh, my own mesh, and you will already see a little preview of my mesh here. It's very small, but that's because I have, or my modeling program has a very small scale. So it isn't really converting into unreal units or in meters, so that's why it is actually pretty small. However, I did something here so it is easier for you to rescale the mesh. Because down here on the automatic sprite creation, we can select the mesh size. So we can make it bigger. And we could potentially even make it smaller. Now then, we have here an option called animation sequence. And here, when you press on the plus sign, you can add array items. And in these arrays, or rather array items, you can put in your animations you want to use. I will use mine, Neri sit sleep, and I will use Neri, well, balls kick animation. Now, after the mesh size, we have camera options. So for example, we can actually set here how fast should the camera turn when we actually rotate it. Then we have the pan speed, how fast should the camera pan. Then we have the camera default zoom speed, how fast should we able to zoom. Then we have the max zoom range, how far can we zoom out. And minimum zoom range, how close, or rather how far back can we actually scroll until we are stopped. Then we have the auto sprite creation, which involves all of the mechanics of the sprite plotting process. The first thing is called disable sound. It's pretty easy. I added a camera sound. I think it's kind of relaxing and has some kind, I don't know, it has some kind of a relaxing tone to it, and it reminds me just of these more old school cameras. So yeah, if it annoys you, you can just click on this and it will disable the sound. Then we have the max sprites X and max sprites Y option. Now the max sprites X means I will put, or rather I will plot 4 frames or 4 sprites in one row. So every row will have 4 sprites. The same principle applies to the max sprites Y option, just that it is measured in columns. So if you specify 4 sprites, that means 4 sprites will be in a column. So when you just multiply 4 times 4, you will get 16 frames. Okay. Then we have sprite width resolution and sprite height resolution. This is the output resolution of your sprite sheet. However, right now it's on 1024 and 1024 in image size. But if you make it higher, it can start to lag and it could even freeze. It will still perform the action, however you need to wait. So making this option higher will result in or can result in lags or freezes, but higher resolution means also higher sprite resolutions. Then we have the sprite resolution X and sprite resolution Y. Some of you might think, why do we need another sprite resolution option? But this is basically just for the individual sprites. So I think you know the problem if you have blurred pixels, for example. it will basically bleed to a neighboring sprite. And when you have, or rather when you zoom out, or if you have the finished sprite sheet, you might notice some, not artifacts, but some resolution inconsistencies. So it kind of looks like it's lower resolution. That's why we can use the Sprite Resolution X to counter it. Making this higher will also increase the times where it needs to process things, and can also result in lag and freezes. But it will make the image crisper, or the individual sprite crisper. Then I added the snapshot delay, especially because of these options. The snapshot delay does just one thing, and it gives the sprite plotting process time to process all these sprites. So if you have a computer which is limited in terms of raw performance, and you have a low performance PC, you can use the snapshot delay, so you will get a time to process them. That way you minimize lags and freezes, and you will still get the same functionality. You just have to wait a little bit longer. However, you can set it to whatever you want, and this is measured in seconds. So 0.01 second means we have just we can just change it to higher values, and it will lower the performance drain. Then we have the Chroma Key Color option. It is on default disabled because we will use the mask feature, and the mask feature just means it puts out a black and white image as a mask, which you can use for an opacity mask. Now, if you still want to use the Chroma Key Color, you can just click on it, select the green color, and it will automatically be applied to the photo booth background. However, we will not use it, at least not here. The next thing is called Use HDR, which means we have two different capture methods. We have HDR and LDR. Now, the difference here is that when you use the HDR option, you will not be able to capture glow. So if you have emissive components, for example, like a flame glow or any other emissive glow, it will not be put out correctly in HDR, and you will not get any kind of glow. So if you want to have glowing objects, just deselect Use HDR, and it will automatically use LDR. That way you can capture your glow and glowing things. Then we have the option called Use Mask, and it's on default enabled. And like I said before, it just outputs a black and white opacity texture, or it's actually a separate black and white opacity texture, which you can use to put into an alpha channel of the texture or whatever you want, and it will get a really crisp opacity mask. That way you don't need to use a Chroma Key Color, because the problem with Chroma Key is that you will get something called color bleed, and that means your some of the surrounding green will impose itself on certain objects, so it will get a little green tint, and it will be masked out too. So this is this color bleeding I'm talking about, and it just creates weird artifacts. That's why I use the mask feature. Use mask off screen, just ignore it. I don't know anymore. I don't know what I wanted to do with it. I say no, I don't know anymore. However, it's not connected to anything. Just ignore it. Just ignore the last option here. Then we have the sprite export path, which just means in which directory do you want to export your sprite sheets. So you will always need to specify it. And the sprite sheet name is also self-explanatory. What should the sprite sheet be called? Now, if you, for example, plot out a sprite sheet, and you don't want to overwrite your old sprite sheet, but you want to create a new one, you need to change the sprite sheet name to something else, or else it will always overwrite your previous sprite sheet. The next thing is called actor spriting. So if you don't want to use a skeletal mesh, but you want to use an actor with a sword, for example, and particles and such, and you want to use a complete actor, please use this function here, where you can basically specify what you want to use for an actor. However, I need to tell you something before. We have something called actor animation time, and this needs to be inputted manually by you. That's because I can't know what the placeholder has for an animation time. So you can add a different components, for example, but I can't predict what you will put in there. So that's why we have the actor animation time, which you need to manually input. It's very easy to do it. For example, if I find my my actor and double click on it, and for example I have a mesh and click on it, and I have my animation here because I use the animation mode and my animation to play. Then I see, okay, I use the animation to play nearest word / animation. So I will just go to the content browser, or rather to the animation, to this one here, and it will already tell me sequence length 3.3 seconds. So I will just input here 3.3 seconds, and you have it. That way the whole system doesn't get confused. That's all there is to it. And when I press play, for example, you will see I will have my mesh in the frame. And the first thing I wanted to say is this button here will basically plot your sprite sheet, so this will start the plotting process. Then we have our progress bar of some sorts, how many sprites were processed. Then we have the animations tab, where we specify the animations earlier inside the editor, and we can select which animation we want to plot out. Then we have the change perspective down here, where we can basically rotate to the right, to the left, to the top, to the bottom, reset the view, and get to the top right, top left, bottom right, and bottom left. So right now you see there's this weird mesh on the side. That's because we didn't delete the floor mesh. So if you want to get rid of it, just take out the default level floor mesh and then use it. So if you have already meshes inside the level, for example, you can also utilize the complete level for a background. So that's up to you what you do. So that way, for example, you can just have a background here because you specified in the level design, and can have the animation being played in front. So that's up to you how you use it. Now, when I do these things, I can just show it in different directions. And then I have some options on the right side here. First off, the pan axis, which means doesn't need to be constrained on one pan axis. So for example, right now it's on the x-axis. So if I hold the space bar down and hold my left mouse button down and go to the right or left, I can drag and change the camera. Now when I change the pan axis to Y, I can do the same, hold down spacebar and then the left mouse button, and I will be able to change it up and down. I can also use the X and Y, which means I can go in every direction. Here's one important thing: if you move out of the frame, means that this thing will be cut out. So everything which is inside this white box will only be captured. Okay, so then we have the pan speed, which means how fast can you pan. Then we have the camera turn rate, which means how fast can we rotate. So to rotate, we can just press the right mouse button. But you will see you can only rotate in the X direction. So right clicking or holding the right mouse button down will just rotate into the X axis. If you want to have a free camera or an orbit camera, you just hold down the middle mouse button and then you go just down and up or to the side. So that's that. Then we have the zoom speed, which is self-explanatory. How far do we want to go in and how far do we want to go out. Then we have the current zoom distance, which is very important because if you want to have the same frame distance, you just memorize the current zoom distance, for example 604 or 430 or whatever it is being displayed here, and then you can just go to the same distance and have the same frame length. Okay, so then we have the zoom range from minimum to maximum, and that means how far can I zoom out and how far can I zoom in. So that's just basically the range. Okay, I will just test it out. I start the process and you will see we will get a preview of the mesh. The mask is generated behind the whole process. So we can just click close preview and we can plot it again or just go out into the editor again. I can also go directly to this distance, plot sprite sheet, and we will have a new basically view here and a new sprite sheet. Okay, so that's what the tool does. Now the images will be inside the folder you specified, and there will also be a mask texture. So it will first put out a diffuse texture, and then it will also put out a separate diffuse plus the suffix mask texture. So you will have a mask texture and a diffuse texture. I hope it wasn't too confusing, and I wish you a wonderful time with this tool. And yeah, I see forward to the things you will create. So I wish you a wonderful day and a wonderful evening, and I hopefully see you.